I'm NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Entin, and every week I'll take you behind the scenes of my life on the road, working on the stories that you care about the most. Here's where I'll share all the great interviews that don't make the final cut and tell you the stories behind what you're seeing on NewsNation every day. It's all part of the puzzle I'm putting together to keep you informed. This is Entin Across America. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Hope you're having a good week. I'm actually on my way to Chicago today to fill in on Morning in America, which is the morning newscast on NewsNation. I've had a little bit of a cold. My voice sounds weird. I'm hoping I get over that. I have to get up super early tomorrow morning. I've never filled in on that show, but I'm excited because the anchor I'm filling in with, Marky Martin, is like one of my besties, my work besties. So it's going to be fun to actually get to sit on the anchor desk with her, so I'm excited. But I wanted to focus today's podcast on the Chelsea Grimm case. She is a missing young woman. She was driving from California to Connecticut to go to a wedding, driving across the country. She actually had she had a bearded dragon pet, which is why she didn't want to fly, and she went missing in Arizona. Really tragic situation. I interviewed her parents and the private investigator working the case. I was on Banfield earlier this week and did the interviews, but I wanted to play them again for you guys because I just think it's a really important case for people to pay attention to. Not getting a lot of coverage. Take a listen. She left her home in San Diego on September 24th, headed for a wedding in Connecticut. She was traveling alone with the exception of her pet bearded dragon. Remember that. The pet bearded dragon, because that sort of comes into play with this whole thing. 3 days into the trip, she met up with a friend in Phoenix, Arizona. That same day, she called her parents to say the drive was taking longer than she thought, and she planned to skip the wedding and head back to San Diego. She didn't realize just how long the drive was going to be, her mom told me. That was the last time her parents actually heard from her. But it wasn't the last time Grimm was seen altogether. That night, she was spotted at a hotel in Seligman, Arizona. A witness says she seemed disoriented, that she was actually trying to use euros instead of U.S. currency. On September 28th, a police officer responding to a report of a woman acting suspiciously found Grimm in her car at a cemetery, and that was in Williams, Arizona. She told him that she was working on a photography project about missing soldiers and that she had gotten emotional. She told the officer she planned to camp in her car that night. Now, I want to show you this. Here is some of the conversation. It was recorded on the officer's body cam.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I just was doing a photo shoot of the lost soldiers and got a little emotional, so I was crying before I got back on the road. I was actually thinking of just camping for the night, but I wasn't really sure exactly yet.
Gotcha. Well,
I didn't plan to be here till sunset.
Okay. Just hang out here however long you want, and you're good to go.
Awesome.
Okay, so 2 days later, on September 30th, a woodcutter saw Grimm camping in her SUV, and that was near Ash Fork, Arizona. He said she seemed okay. On October 4th, Grimm's parents reported her missing. The next day, October 5th, hunters found Grimm's SUV. It was abandoned. It was in the middle of a dirt road, and that was also outside Ash Fork, Arizona. Where she had spoken again to that woodcutter. That was 5 days earlier. This is what's very strange. Both tires on the right side of the SUV, they were flat. Her cell phone, her wallet, clothing, and sleeping bag were not in the car. And again, this is important, neither was her pet bearded dragon, who she had gotten pretty recently. We're going to hear more about that in a second. Earlier today, I spoke with Chelsea's parents, Janet and Stephen Grimm. Here's some of that conversation. Can you talk to us a little bit about her itinerary? Was her plan to drive all the way from California to Connecticut? Was it sort of like a road trip she was looking forward to?
Actually, she was originally going to fly, but because she had recently acquired a bearded dragon as a pet, and the airlines wouldn't let her take that animal on the plane. So the day that she was supposed to fly east for this wedding, she called and said, I'm going to drive across the country. And she said, I've packed my car, I have my tent, I have my sleeping bag. I might spend a couple nights in a hotel. I might camp. I'm going to sort of see how it goes. And 3 days later, I mean, we talked to her in between, but 3 days later, she said, I'm only as far as Arizona. I just don't think I can do this by myself, which we had tried to explain in the beginning. But she said, so I think I'm going to just skip the wedding and stay here for a couple of days and do a little camping. And then, so she made it sound like she was going to head back to San Diego.
Saw the picture of the bearded dragon. Did she have an adventurous spirit? I'm just thinking like that's a long drive, and the camping was it out of the ordinary for her to sort of be spontaneous?
I'd say yes and no. She was spontaneous. She changed plans a lot. This wasn't the first time she ever changed a plan, for sure. The magnitude of this adventure, quote unquote, of driving across the country, was a lot, even for Chelsea. And we said we thought that was too much. And if she wanted, we'd help her fly from Phoenix home, or, she had a friend in Phoenix that she could leave her car with. We gave her, a bunch of options. But she seemed intent on this once she had chosen it.
What made you report her missing? Like when did you start to get the feeling that something was wrong?
Well, we last talked to Chelsea on the 27th in the afternoon, and she said, I'm going to camp for a couple of days, and so I'm going to be probably where I'm not going to have cell service. And so for a couple of days, we didn't even think about it again, because she had told us she would be offline, and we knew she was in in Arizona, where there are spots where it's not particularly good for communication. So it was after a couple more days after that we started thinking, this is too long for a camping trip, and she should be back. She should be somewhere where she can get in touch. And so on the 4th of October, we reported her missing, and on the 5th, they found her car in Arizona.
He had met up with a friend in Phoenix, I believe. Have you talked to that person? Were they able to give any information about sort of her state of mind or what was going on?
Yes, actually, our other daughter talked to her at great length, and she shared a couple of emails. And she said that they gotten together, and they had a nice visit at her house. And Chelsea and she were going to brunch the next day, but the next day when it got closer to time for brunch, Chelsea said, I need to get change plans. So she did, with this other friend.
Did the friend have any information about like any reason to be concerned, or did it just seem like a normal hangout?
Yeah, not particularly. Yeah, no alarm bells or anything. I mean, she says they had a nice visit, and she was looking forward to seeing her the next day. So can't really explain that any better.
No, she said she was doing a photo project, I think in a cemetery, when she interacted with that police officer. Do you know anything more about that? Was she, a photographer? Can you shed light on that a little bit?
Well, she did photography a lot, and she also did paintings, rendered art, to supplement her income, whatever her income was. And so it's not at all unusual for her to have been doing a story or a photojournalist story for some, whatever publication. So that's not unusual. Being in the cemetery is, I guess if you're doing a story on lost soldiers, that maybe that's a good place to look.
I think she also had a strong affinity to her grandfather, Janet's dad, who was a World War II veteran. And perhaps that was a draw to the veterans there.
Yeah. Have you been able to see that body camera video? I think it was on. Did anything seem out of the ordinary, or did she just, you obviously know her better than anyone. Did she seem like herself in the video?
couldn't see much of her. We just heard her voice. That sounded like it was definitely her, in my opinion. No, it didn't seem, out of the ordinary. And one thing that seemed very in the ordinary or in character was how I think she said, "I appreciate your compassion," or something like that. That sounded 110% like Chelsea. She's a very compassionate, empathetic person, kind of an artist at heart, and that sounded just like her.
She had an interaction with a woodcutter also. Have you been able to get any more information about that?
I know the authorities have talked to him, or I believe it's a male. We don't have anything particularly noteworthy to add on that, except he thought she did not seem, in distress or in need. He actually went back some short time later to make sure she didn't want help, and she again a second time declined his help. So his conclusion was that she was in pretty good shape, not worrisome.
It sounds like the bearded dragon was important to her, obviously, if she was going to drive across the country and not fly. The bearded dragon was not found with the car. Does that make you think that she went somewhere and took the pet with her? Is that sort of a good sign to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Chelsea has always had a special spot in her heart for children, elderly people, and animals. And she would never leave an animal in a car. She just wouldn't do it. So I think that is a hopeful sign. I also think that the chances of people recognizing Chelsea are at least sort of connecting the dots. If they see somebody with a bearded dragon, they're going to take an extra look at that person, because it's unusual to be carrying around a bearded dragon, usually on her shoulder.
It would definitely stand out. So that's a good thing for people to look out for.
Right. She also had a very distinctive tattoo on her left arm, which was a vine with leaves on it that sort of wrapped all the way around her lower arm. So another visual clue.
Have police given you any other information? I mean, is there anything else people watching this should be on the lookout for in a certain area, or are there any other tidbits that they've been able to give you?
I wish there were. There is a chance she got a ride out of there. She seemed to have left that car of her own volition in an organized way. It was locked. She had taken her wallet, and we think her phone and her sleeping bag, among other things, along with the bearded dragon. So the reason I mention that is the area of possibilities where she could be is pretty wide. It's a wide net. So, surrounding states have been notified, not just Arizona. The surrounding states, the authorities in Coconino County have been terrific in helping get the word out. And so even if you're, several hours away from there as a viewer and you've seen something that you think might be any kind of tip, we would be forever grateful if that's an important clue. Time is of the essence. And so anything that leads to progress would be awesome.
Gosh, you really have to feel for those parents and what they're going through right now. And Janet and Stephen, they have hired a private investigator to help them with the search for their daughter. And Kelly Townsend joins me now on the phone. Kelly, it's a strange case. Hard to wrap my mind around. I was trying to go over all the details today and the timeline and the fact that the car was found. And that she's missing with the bearded dragon. Have you been able to piece anything together yet? I mean, do you think that she is likely still in Arizona at this point?
Well, that's very difficult to tell right now. I mean, the circumstances, you're right, they are bizarre. And the body cam video of the law enforcement officer talking to her, my agency's just recently been brought on. But I have an interest in, he recommended for her to go to Love's. And I'm working with Coconino law enforcement right now and trying to find out, has anybody gone there to check out the CCTV? Because if she actually followed the officer's advice and was camping there or just sleeping in her car there, did she get approached? And I know the Love's, those Love's gas stations, I guess, truck driver stations, they have places where people can sleep. Truck drivers do it all the time, showers and stuff like that. So I'm right now, we're just trying to gather as much information as we can. Coconino County Sheriff's Department has been outstanding working with us. Some law enforcement departments, they don't work with you just because you're a private investigator. But because I'm interested, because there was 2 flat tires, it was out on a dirt road. How far was the body cam video where she was talked to by the police there to where the car was found? Because did somebody interact with her and then they drove down that road? We're all assuming at this point right now because nobody really knows for sure except God. Right. That's where we are right now. We have had some interesting things come to light just as of today. Matter of fact, just a few hours ago, that we're working on that could really generate stuff that we're probably going to want to get out on the news if it comes to fruition, because we may have something that we want the world to look out for.
Yeah, I would imagine when you start asking questions and like you said, around that gas station, first of all, the thought of a young woman sleeping alone with just a bearded dragon in a gas station parking lot makes me a little nervous. Can you share a little more about what you've discovered in the last couple of hours, or give us
I really can't at this point. I really can't because number one, we have to verify. Number two, we have to interview, and these people literally just came up on the radar today, and so we're trying to get interviews set up and composite sketches and things like that.
The tidbit about her trying to use, I think it was like euros instead of dollars, and possibly being disoriented. Do you know anything more about that? Because her parents, told me, she was an artist. It wasn't odd for her to be in the cemetery taking pictures as part of her art project. It just seems strange to me that there was that one account that maybe she was like disoriented at one point.
Yeah, right now I can't say that I would verify that with you right now. I thought it was a little odd where she was crying, but the law enforcement officer walked up to her and she was crying. And he asked her, and she said it's because she just took pictures at the graveyard and she was weeping for the soldiers. I don't know. I've never personally met Chelsea, but she seems like a nice heart, very compassionate girl. But was she actually crying and just saying that to law enforcement? You follow what I'm saying? Right.
Or perhaps she was moved by the art project she was working on. We'll stay in touch with you, Kelly. We want to stay on this story, and I'm glad that you're involved. And I feel for those parents. I just want to put out the phone number. Anyone with information, you can contact the sheriff's office there. The number is 928-774-4523. Hopefully, we will have some good news to report. So again, if anyone has information, you can call the sheriff's office there in Arizona. The number is 928-774-4523. And I hope everybody has a good week. I got to go to bed at super early tonight because I'm doing the morning show again tomorrow. And I'm kind of a night owl. So hopefully I'm able to get some sleep. Also, check out my UFO special. Part 2 of my UFO special is going to be on Sunday night on NewsNation, 9 o'clock Eastern. Just fascinating stuff, whether you're a believer, skeptic, just interested in the subject. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. So thanks, guys. Thanks for spending some time with me. To see what I'm up to next, make sure to tune into NewsNation. And if you don't know where to watch us, just go to www.joinnn.com. You drop in your zip code right there in the channel finder, and it'll show you the broadcast channel we're on in your area. And don't forget, we're on all the streamers too: Hulu, Roku, YouTube TV, and we're also on Amazon Alexa and Apple CarPlay. If you have a story you think that I need to know about, then just hit me up on Twitter. I check all my DMs. You can find me there. And I'll catch you next time on NewsNation's Entin Across America.